Welcome to my NFL 2022 Week 2 review and recap. In this series of videos, I just go through the NFL Week in review, go through all the games that happened, the recap, the big takeaways, all that kind of good stuff. So we're in Week 2, and the Week 2 slate originally I didn't think was all that like, oh my god, eye-poppingly good. But it turns out there was a lot of exciting finishes, particularly on Sunday around the same time. So we'll go through all of those. But we'll start off on Thursday, this past Thursday night of football. Chargers at Chiefs. The Chiefs won at 27-24. For the most part, this was a pretty fun game. Chargers were in control early, but the Chiefs, in typical fashion, were relentless, came on strong at the end, and were able to take control. The big takeaway from this game, though, was Justin Herbert getting hurt. He has sort of a rib problem now going on that doesn't need surgery or anything like that. But yeah, as they said, he's day to day. Hopefully, he doesn't miss much time. With this being a Thursday night game, hopefully those few extra days of rest until next Sunday gets him good to go for the remainder of the time. But he's definitely going to be dealing with some problems for the next month. Hopefully that doesn't ruin their chances because I did pick them to be number one in the AFC West. But the Chiefs, they look great. It's arguably the best team in the whole NFL. Them are the Bills. But the Chargers, they're definitely going to need Herbert if they want to live up to expectations this season. Then we move over to the Sunday slate. First game, Patriots versus Steelers, a game that I did watch for the most part all the way through. This was a pretty ugly game, mainly because these are two very ugly offenses, very uninspired offenses. Two defensive coaches and offenses that are just really limited. Patriots definitely needed this win, 0-2. That would have put them really behind the eight ball in the AFC. As for the Steelers, it's funny. I did think originally starting Mitch Trubisky was the right move, but you just watch how their offense has been for the past couple of weeks. It was terrible in this game, and then the previous game, week 1, they basically did nothing in the second half and had to hold on for dear life against the Bengals. But just look at how they're playing right now. It's like, man, I'd probably give Trubisky definitely another week, maybe 2. And if things don't get better, I'll definitely turn over to Kenny Pickett because if you're going to suck offensively, you might as well get the rookie in there, get some reps, and start improving and really start to build for the future because obviously Mitch Trubisky is not it. And I expected him to be a lot better than he's been so far this season. Then move over to the next game, Panthers versus Giants in the Meadowlands. Giants won this one 19-16. Pretty much a solid game for the most part, some decent back and forth. The Panthers 2 weeks in a row, unfortunately for them, losing on last minute field goals and all that stuff. Yeah, it kind of sucks for them. So they're 0-2, but I still think they've been a decent team so far in terms of the way they've played. As for the Giants, 2-0 start, great for them. They've had a really sort of miserable time for the past few years. So 2-0 start is definitely good for their psyche and sort of shows that they're moving in the right direction, all starting by their guys, meaning Saquon Barkley being healthy. And the new coaching is with Brian Daboll definitely sort of seems like it's paying dividend so far. Then we move over to Jets Browns, the first of many wild finishes this weekend where the Jets won 31-30, where they were down by 13 points with 2 minutes to go and ended up coming back due to some questionable decisions from the Brown, mainly Nick Chubb not sliding down and running down the clock. They always say to do that in terms of just run out the clock because you never know what might happen. He did not, and it ended up going very badly for them as the Jets were able to pull off a miracle and come back from that deficit in such a short amount of time. Pretty amazing finish for the Browns. It would have been great for them to go out to 2-0 start without Deshaun Watson because the more wins they can stack up before he comes back, that definitely helped them out a lot. They're 1-1. Jets are 1-1. The Jets, they're definitely improving. Flacco made a big time pass to sort of help get them back into the game. So we'll see where both of these teams go from here. But I think they're both in decent position going forward. Colts versus Jaguars. This was not a wild finish. Jaguars shut the Colts out 24-0. The Jaguars, I think this does say a lot about both teams so far. We can see a lot so far in the early part of the season. Jaguars definitely improving. It's good to see Lawrence playing well after his rookie season the previous year. Things seem to look going in the right direction for them. I think they have a real chance to win this division now. As for the Colts, who were the trendy pick to win the AFC South, they have not looked good so far and getting shut out 24-0. Not good. I think they're pretty much facing like a must-win situation for their next game, which is no gimme because they're playing the Chiefs. So their season might be over before it starts. But then again, the AFC South, I think, is definitely the worst division in all of football. This is just an ugly division. And with how ugly it is, who would have thought that the Jacksonville Jaguars would have a legitimate chance to win the division? But I think they can just because the Colts and the Titans not looking good. And they were definitely the two favorites going in. But I didn't have the Colts winning this division anyway. I picked them to be second. They may finish even worse than that. I'll put it that way. Dolphins versus Ravens, the wildest out of all of these wild finishes this weekend. Unbelievable game to watch in terms of you look down at the score and you see that, okay, the Ravens were up like 28-7 going into the fourth quarter, and the Dolphins are able to come all the way back based on a breakthrough performance by Tua Tagovailoa. 6 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Unbelievable to be able to come back from that kind of deficit. Now, I know the Ravens are kind of deficient when it comes to the corner positions right now in terms of starting a couple of rookies, but still, that's just super impressive, and that's just a real breakthrough moment for Tua. Sort of legitimizes the moves that they've made in terms of going with the offensive direction and all that stuff, and obviously trading for Tyreek Hill and pairing him with Eric Waddle. That definitely helps a lot. So yeah, hopefully this leads to some exciting stuff for the Dolphins, because it would be fun to see them and Tua be sort of like really make those kind of strides. As for the Ravens, I don't think this says too much about them. They'll still be a really good team, so not too worried about the Ravens. It was a great performance by Lamar Jackson, who even despite Tua being as great as he was, I still think Lamar Jackson had the better game. But yeah, this I don't think the Ravens are in too big of trouble. They'll be fine. Buccaneers Saints, I'm going to call this a wild game in terms of the actual play. I mean, at the half, it was 3-0. Saints up 3-0. It was like, Saints looking like they're having the Bucs number again. Bucs end up sort of getting them in the final half, particularly the fourth quarter, 20-10. Tempers really flared in this game with Mike Evans and him getting suspended now, and then this whole stuff with Lattimore and all that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, this is a very heated rivalry, but Tom Brady and his Bucs finally got a win in this Tom Brady era of Bucs football. The Bucs offensively definitely do not look impressive so far. Right now, it's their defense that's really getting them. The defense has been very relentless, and that pass rush has been really something. They were able to pick off Jameis Winston 3 times. Not sort of an unheard thing to hear of, but I think a lot of people, including me, picked the Saints to win this game. But the Bucs finally got that win. Tempers are always going to flare when these two teams play, and this game definitely did not live up to those expectations. I'll put it that way. I can't speak right now. Then we move over to the next game. Commanders at the Lions. We saw something. This was the first time the Lions had been put as an outright favorite in like 2 years. Ended up winning this game 36-27. The Lions, I think everyone could see they're going to be improved this year, and the Commanders, the Commanders are the Commanders. It's going to be kind of up and down for them. I don't read too much into this game for either side. 49ers Seahawks. 27-7. 49ers really needed this game, but that's obviously not the big story. The big story is Trey Lance out for the season with a broken ankle, which he's had surgically repaired. And yeah, that means Jimmy G is going to be back in the saddle. A really amazing sort of turn of events with how things were looking in the offseason, with them making the move to Trey Lance, which they needed to. Give up all that draft capital. He sits basically pretty much all of the first year. You got to play him. Kind of an up and down preseason for him, mainly kind of downs, and then the first start so far wasn't great. Now, amazingly, to have Jimmy G back, which no one thought he would be back as a backup, and now he gets to be back in. Maybe the 49ers saw this coming just because Lance's play style based a whole lot on sort of running around, potentially getting hit. Jimmy G, I think, though, it sucks for Trey Lance, him being out. But I think everyone can see that right now, in terms of giving them the best chance to win, it's probably Jimmy G, even though there is a sort of ceiling. We've seen that in terms of Jimmy G's play, they have been able to have high levels of success with him on 2 occasions. So I think this definitely ups their chances in the NFC now, which is definitely a very weak conference. And now the 49ers, if they can capture the same kind of magic they've had in the postseason, 2 out of the previous 4 years, or 2 out of the previous 3 years, then they'll obviously be a real contender in the AFC. Falcons Rams. Rams won this one 37-27. They were pretty dominant through most of the game. Falcons made a comeback to get back in. Not a super impressive victory for the Rams. One they definitely needed, though. Didn't want to start off 0-2. Not going to read too much into this one yet. I think the Rams still need some time to really get into the swing of things. Maybe they're not all the way quite into it. We'll see what the Rams do from here. I still think they'll be solid. Cardinals Raiders. Out of all these finishes, I guess the Ravens one might be a little more wild, but this was obviously a super wild finish. The Raiders were dominating this game versus the Cardinals in Las Vegas. Looked like it was going to be curtains for the Cardinals, just because if they got into an 0-2 start with the kind of blowout losses they've had would have been really bad for them. They managed to come all the way back, put the game into overtime. Kyler Murray was sensational down the stretch. Some of the plays he made to sort of send the game into overtime, the touchdown pass, the 2-point conversion. It was truly amazing stuff. Some of the best stuff I've ever seen from him. And I'm not really the biggest Kyler Murray fan. And then in overtime, oh my goodness, Hunter Renfrow fumbles twice on the same drive. The first one they recover. The second one, they're basically in field goal range. He fumbles, and it gets returned by a Cardinal all the way back for a return touchdown to win the game. Unbelievable finish to watch live. I saw this after the Cowboys game. It was like, wow, that is incredible. So yeah, this was a game the Cardinals definitely needed. As for the Raiders, man, 0-2 in that division. I think most people pick them to be fourth anyway, but you don't want to get off to that 0-2 start. And if they go down 0-3 in their next game, it's probably going to be curtains for them in that division. Won't be looking so good. Texans Broncos. Broncos won this one 16-9, but it's definitely still not another great effort from the Broncos, even though they won this game. The reason you get Nathaniel Hackett is to improve the offense. And now they've gone up against the Texans and the Seahawks, not exactly two powerhouse defenses, and they've really struggled offensively both times. And I guess the main thing people are taking away from this one is that Nathaniel Hackett maybe seems a little over his head. You know, the decisions he made in the previous game to not kick the 60-yard field goal, and then sort of the time management issues he's had in this one. Yeah, not great. You know, it's 2 games in, but he needs to start really upping his game, and this team needs to start upping their game offensively. You know, Hackett upping it, the play calling. Russell Wilson needs to play better, because this is definitely not what they were hoping for in Denver with this team. It's supposed to be a legit contender. Next game of the final one of sort of the afternoon window, Bengals at the Cowboys. A wild game to watch. Watch this one all the way through. Cowboys were dominating this game at the beginning. It was like 14-0 or 14-3 at halftime. And then obviously I was like, oh no, me being the Cowboys fan, like, come on, you're just going to have to hold on for dear life here, just because even though they're starting Cooper Rush, it's like, man, I don't know if they're going to be holding on. And the Bengals were able to put it on them in the second half, basically tying the game all the way. They had a super long drive in the fourth quarter to tie it, 2-point conversion, and it's like, oh no. And then eventually they get the ball back, and it's like, well, here comes Joe Burrow. He's going to go win the game with all he needed is a field goal to win it. Cowboys end up stopping him, three and out, big time tackle by Trayvon Diggs. And then somehow Cooper Rush just super clutch on that final drive to get them in field goal range. 3 great throws, get them in the field goal range, win the game. Great win, a game they really needed after they were winning by a good margin in the first half. So they get improved to 1-1. Bengals 0-2. I don't think it's curtains for the Bengals. You know, I think they got time to turn things around. I think a lot of their issues are the fact that Joe Burrow was out that time with the appendectomy, whatever that is. So I think they're not dead yet. I think they'll be okay. The Cowboys, they definitely really needed this win, so I'll put it that way and leave it at that. But the Bengals, I guess for your contender status, I still think they'll be okay. Bears-Packers. Packers win 27-10. Predictable result under Matt LaFleur in this era for the last 4 years. Every time they lose, they manage to come back and sort of get the win. Now, they obviously, most of the time, they're going against pretty easy opponents. The Bears, despite their win last week, still not obviously world beaters. Packers end up winning this one 27-10. But I don't think this says too much about either team. I think we all know what they are. You know, the Packers, even though they had that bad loss last week, most people figured they'll figure it out and they'll be able to beat the teams that they need to beat. As for the Bears, well, you know, they'll be the Bears. You know, not going to be great, especially looking to the Packers, which Aaron Rodgers, as he said last year, he does still own them after all this time, and this game was no exception. Now we move over to the Monday night games. These were not great games. Titans-Bills. The Bills absolutely dominated this one, 41-7. It was tied 7-7, then the Bills put 34 straight on them. Yeah, the Bills, they're going to be dominant. Everyone knows that. There's a reason they're the preseason favorites. As for the Titans, I did actually pick the Titans to win the AFC South, and now they've gone off to an 0-2 start. I guess somehow I figured they would get some of that same magic that they had the previous year, and I still think Mike Vrabel's a really good coach. But it's not that they've not looked good at all these first 2 games, and they need to find a way to get a win. Otherwise, it looks like that Ryan Tannehill era in Tennessee is going to be over, and they'll move over to the rookie that they drafted. Vikings-Eagles is a game I actually did think was going to be pretty good. I think these are 2 evenly matched teams, but needless to say, I underestimated the stink that Kirk Cousins can put in a primetime game. You know, he's always fine in those freaking non-national TV games. I'll put it that way. But on Monday Night Football, anytime primetime game, yeah, not great. He was really terrible. I mean, in the second half, he was just throwing balls up for grabs, and they just got intercepted like it was nothing. As for the Eagles got a real chance to be like a real #1 seed in the NFC with how their schedule is, how easy it is, and Jalen Hurts playing really well, and the sort of improvements they've made. Yeah, the Eagles looking real nice. So they're gonna be, I think they're gonna be legit in the NFC, and with that schedule, yeah, even more legit in terms of their seeding and all that kind of stuff. And I definitely think they should be the favorites in the NFC East if they weren't already. I think most people have them to be the betting favorites anyway. I picked them to be the #1 in that division. So yeah, they're doing what I guess people were expecting them to do now. But it is good to see Hurts making those real improvements in terms of his play. So there you have your NFL Week 2 games in review. Yeah, these comebacks were absolutely wild. The ones we saw, the Ravens won. All of these ones, the Raiders, the Ravens, the Jets, these were some great, amazing comebacks. Made some really fun, wild finishes to watch. And with a slate that wasn't the most impressive slate, but it was a fun games to watch. With it, I think we didn't learn too much in terms of being like, oh my God, this team is like going to be terrible and whatnot. But a lot of these teams, like these 0-2 teams now, the ones that were kind of surprising, like the Colts, I think they're in trouble, even though I guess they're technically 0-1-1. It was a tie. The Bengals, like I mentioned, they'll be all right. But like I said, I think most of the stuff hasn't really changed too much in terms of our expectations for most of these teams going forward. So move over to Week 3, the preview of the slate going up, and there should be another fun week of football. So if you made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching.